So here's the core idea of this episode. Most of your knowledge is constructed. It's a highly constructed, highly biased, highly partial conceptual illusion designed to maintain your survival and sense of sanity and comfort. It's not really grounded in a deep truth. Survival, sanity, comfort, not truth. Those are easily confused by society. You are not aware of how relative and biased your knowledge is and how quickly it can collapse under the right questioning, prodding, altered states of consciousness, and so on. Your life is a conceptual fortress that is actually a house of cards, which is actually why you and others, if you haven't noticed yet, act so defensively in debates, arguments, on online forums, on Twitter, in social media comments. People get very ideologically defensive, politically, religiously, even within science, even amongst mathematicians and logicians. If you notice, even amongst the greatest intellectuals and academics and the greatest philosophers, they all disagree with each other and they all get very defensive about their intellectual positions. Why is that? You should start to suspect that something sneaky and mischievous is going on, some sleight of hand. Why this defensiveness, you might wonder? If you're so convinced of the truth of your conceptual fortress, why are you so defensive? Why are you so easily triggered? Why do you feel the need to lash out, to criticize others, to try to debunk others, undermine others, threaten others? Why do you get your fifis hurt so badly in intellectual disputes? Why even have intellectual disputes if you are in possession of the truth? If you already know what you think you know? Or maybe you suspect somewhere deep down in your subconscious mind, you suspect that actually you are living in a conceptual fortress, which is a house of cards, which can easily collapse. And that is in fact why you have to be so defensive about it. Because if you're not defensive, then the wind will just blow your fortress down. And then how are you going to survive? How are you going to maintain your sanity? And how are you going to maintain your comfort in life? See? Notice that these three are what you really want, what most people really want, as opposed to truth. And when there happens to be a rift that opens up between survival, sense of sanity and comfort versus truth, you're going to be very hard pressed to stick with truth. Most people are going to side with survival, sanity, and comfort. So what I'm trying to get you to understand is that you're fooling yourself about how much you know. You think you know a lot, but most of the stuff you know is very partial, very biased, and downright wrong. And from this actually stem most of your problems in life. The only problem here is that this is such a deep problem that when the actual problems in your life manifest, they don't manifest with a warning label that says, oh, this problem, like, oh, you got divorced, or, oh, your girlfriend cheated on you, or it's like, oh, you're having money problems, or it's like, oh, you can't maintain a job, or it's like, oh, you're depressed and suicidal. See, these issues, when they come up in your life, like, oh, you're obese, or you can't get your ass to the gym on a regular basis, like these sorts of problems, they don't come with the label of like, your whole understanding of reality is wrong. They aren't disclosed that way. So you think that the problem is something, usually you think the problem is something external. It's like, oh, it's somebody out there. It's that person, she cheated on me. It's her fault. That's why it's happening. I'm depressed because those politicians are, destroying our country. And, I'm I'm struggling with money because of the capitalist system we're in. It's this kind of stuff. Usually you're blaming it on some sort of shallow external force that is impinging upon you and your happiness. But really, you got to look deeper, and you'll see that it's actually because you're fooling yourself about the stuff you think you know. And it's very difficult to get the mind to release its grip on the stuff it thinks it knows but doesn't actually know. Or it has a very partial, twisted, corrupted form of knowing of. And it's to see, knowing something isn't just a binary, like you either know it or you don't know it. There's many degrees of knowing a thing. And so one of the tricks the mind uses is well, I know a little bit about the fork, and then you kind of your mind says, well, if I know a little bit about it, it's as though I know the whole thing. It's no, you don't know the whole thing. Maybe you know 1% of it. And even that 1% is very wrong in many cases. So what I want you to start to notice is that the mind, not just your mind, but anyone's mind, puts up fake fronts of knowing. Beliefs, assumptions, speculations, theories, hearsay, deductions, narratives, ideology, guesses, intuitions. But all of these are highly fallible and also highly partial. Also, they are twisted to fit the needs of your ego, which is the thing that is looking at the world, right? The ego is not looking at the world objectively. The ego has a very strong slant towards survival and towards meeting its own needs. And so it tends to see the world in whichever way meets those needs.